thank you so much for joining us. We are here today to learn about how Skyscend is able to facilitate supply chain financing on its platform. Let me set the context by talking a little bit about what is supply chain finance, how it works, followed by the product demo. Supply chain finance, it's known as supply finance, sometimes it's called reverse factoring. It is a financing solution in which the suppliers receive early payments on their approved invoices. Primarily, supply chain finance, it enables both the buyers as well as suppliers to optimize their working capital. How it works is, in the first instance, the buyer enters into an agreement with a supply chain finance provider like Skyscend Capital. The buyer will then invite its suppliers to join the early payment program. Once a supply chain finance program is up and running, now the suppliers can request early pay on their invoices. From there, the supply chain finance process plays out, which typically looks something like this. Once the buyer purchases goods and service from the suppliers, the step one is the supplier issues an invoice to the buyer with payment due with certain number of days, like 30 days or 60 days. In the second step, the buyer approves the invoice and schedules for a payment. So in need of accelerating the payments, which is step 3, the supplier requests an early payment on the approved invoice. And the step 4 is the funder, in this case, the Skyscend Capital, sends payment to the supplier with a small fee deducted. And the step 5 is when the buyer pays the funder, in this case, the Skyscend Capital, on the invoice due date. So like this, the supplier and the buyers both benefit from the supply chain finance. So for suppliers, firstly, as we can see, it helps them optimize their working capital. Clearly, the days sales outstanding, the DSO is reduced. Secondly, the suppliers, it gives them an access to lower cost of funding when compared to the traditional bank loans or the invoice factoring. On the other side, the buyers, they also get an equal chance to improve their working capital position. It helps improve the supply chain health, and it strengthens the supplier relationships. So with this background, let's look into how all this is achieved using Skyscend Pay platform. Here, BCP, the BS Construction Partners, is the buyer organization. Its SCF program is powered by Skyscend Inc. and funded by Skyscend Capital. So BCP, the buyer organization, it has invited all of its suppliers to join the early pay program. Let's try to log in as a supplier. So I have received my username and password in a welcome email when the onboarding was done. As soon as I log in, I see a welcome dashboard. It gives me a snapshot of my business, my payments. I can see that BS Construction, in this case my customer, they have approved about 76 invoices that amounts to 964,000 US dollars. Of those 76, there are 6 invoices that are eligible for early pay that amounts to 203,000. And at this point in time, there are 5 invoices that amount for 147,000, which I have put for early pay request, and the status is in pending. So as a part of my supplier profile, I need to give my remittance and banking information so that all my early pays are processed and the payment transfer happens to the banking information that I provide here. So as a next step, I need to associate myself with the financier. So I go to finance management, add new association, look up the financier. In this case, I want to go with Skyscend Capital, select, fill in my information, and then click on submit. My request goes to financier. It takes about 24 hours for the request to be approved. Only when this step is completed, I can request early pay on my invoices. So let me go to the invoice management tab. So this view, it gives me a visibility into my invoices and the payments, I see the list of all the invoices that I had submitted to BS Construction. So I see the invoice number, I see the payment due date, and I see the amount and the status. I do see a get paid option for a couple of the invoices, and there are some I don't see. If the invoice is past the due date, it automatically becomes ineligible for the early payment. In this case, as a supplier, I want my invoice number ending with 001 to be paid tomorrow. So I just go click on get paid. I see that the invoice number, the invoice date, the due date. I see that there's still 22 days left for the payment to happen. And I want to expedite the payment process and I want to be paid by a bank ACH. This is the actual invoice amount. Now let me calculate the early payment. Everything looks good. So I'm going to click on request early payment. Now invoice submitted for early payment. For my tracking, 11001 invoice has moved from this tab to early payment invoice. This tab is to track all the early payment invoices. So I can see that I just submitted a 001 invoice. It's in the pending stage. That's why it's listed under the requested for early pay. I can also see the rejected early pay invoices, and I can also see the early paid invoices. And once I receive the payment, I can track my invoices here, as well as I can also see the list of payments that I've received so far. Now I have logged in as a financier. My profile is Skyscend Capital, and I'm looking into my customer, in this case, BS Construction Partners. I'm seeing all the early pay requests coming from the BS Construction suppliers. Previously, we saw that the supplier with the invoice number ending 11001, it has come to my queue. It's in the pending stage. As a financier, I can view the invoice information here, and I can take a call whether to approve this early pay request or reject. Just approve the early pay request. And it has moved to approved invoices. You can see 11001. In case of rejection, that invoice goes and sits in under the rejected invoices. So as a supplier, I'm coming back to my account, and under early paid invoice, I can see that my previous request 11001 is been approved by the financier, and I'll receive payment. This is how, as a supplier, I get visibility to my cash flow. With 30,000 coming tomorrow in my bank account, I know like the vendors that I need to pay, or the payroll that I need to process, or the projects that I need to invest. That way, this is a great tool for me as a supplier. Now let me log in as a buyer organization and see what all options I have. So as soon as I log in, I get to see a list of all my suppliers who are already onboarded for the early pay program. Like this, I get a visibility into how my suppliers are leveraging the early pay program. You know, I can track their invoices, how many of their early pay requests have been approved, have been rejected, and are all in the pending state, which are pending for the financial approval. Under payments page, I can see the list of all the payments that my supplier has received as part of early payments from the financier. So this is easy for my tracking so that I can avoid any sort of double payments to the same supplier. Well, that's all I had for today's demo. Thank you so much for staying till the end. We just discussed how Skyscend Pay platform it unites the buyer, supplier, and the financier, and how it's been able to facilitate supply chain finance successfully. This way, Skyscend Pay platform, it creates a win-win-win for all the three parties. And for any questions or queries you may have, you can reach me on my email ID, which is pratik@skyscend.com, or you can write to us at contact@skyscend.com. So the email IDs are on your screen. Thank you once again.